You're listening to the big interview on the Shamanic Voice. Hello and welcome to the March edition of the big interview here on the Shamanic Voice. Today we are talking to Jim Graywolf. He's speaking to us from New Mexico in the USA. Jim is an author who has written the book White Man, Red Path, 5 Colors, which is really a story of his personal shamanic journey and of anyone's journey, really. And Jim is also very heavily involved with non-profits who are working to make positive changes in the world from a shamanic viewpoint. Primarily at the moment he is involved with Sanctuaries of the Earth Mother, which can be found at www.sotem.org, and that's probably the best place to get a good feel for what it is that Jim's all about and the kind of work that he's doing. I wanted to speak to Jim today because he's on his way over here to the UK in April. He's coming over here for the London Book Fair and doing a couple of things in Cornwall and Scotland as well while he's in the UK. So I wanted to give you guys a chance, you UK listeners. I know there's a lot of you who listen from my homeland. I wanted to give you a chance to hear what he's all about and see if it's a connection that you possibly wanted to make while he was over here. It's kind of fascinating how this interview has come about, because I was contacted by a listener, and I was contacted by him via Facebook, where we're all making our sort of virtual connections and really celebrating that idea of an online community in our world. And he suggested that I may want to speak to Jim, talk to him about the work that he's doing. Felt it might be an interesting message for our listeners, and he was dead right. I really enjoyed speaking to Jim, and I love this idea of a community that's always extending further and further. I love the fact that another shamanic practitioner would just, reach out and say, hey, this is what I want to hear on the radio. This is who I want you to be speaking to. So that it really gives this feel of community that I'm starting to feel is really blooming into life around the Shamanic Voice, and it's exactly what I wanted when I set the station up. I wanted us to be working together as a community and to be listening to you guys, what it is that you need, who you want to be listening to, and what you want them to be talking about. So really just a great series of events of reaching out between people that have led to me personally and us at the Shamanic Voice making a really fantastic new friend in Jim Graywolf. So take note, if there's a message that you think you really want to be put out there among this community, or if there's someone that you'd just really like to hear an interview with, and you want us to kind of chase that down and organise an interview so that you can hear their thoughts on shamanism today, from their own mouths, then please get in touch with us. We would love to hear that. We love when people are proactive and get in touch with us and tell us what they want, and if we can make it happen, we will absolutely make it happen for you. So if you have any feedback on today's show, it's a really, I loved doing this interview. I had a real beautiful energy flowing the whole way through this interview, so I hope that you enjoy it, and if you do have any comments, I'd love to hear from you. And also if you want to get in touch and let us know any ideas that you have for forthcoming shows or people that you would like us to be interviewing, then please let us know. The email address is theshamanicvoice@gmail.com. That's theshamanicvoice@gmail.com, and we will do what we can to meet your needs. You are our community and we are here for you. So now, without further ado, let's go into that interview. This is Jim Graywolf speaking to us from New Mexico. So, Jim is joining us now from Santa Fe in New Mexico. So hi Jim, thank you for joining us.
Hi Kay, how are you doing?
Very good, thank you. Really appreciate you making time today to speak to us here on the Shamanic Voice. It's a real pleasure to have you. I know you've got quite a lot of things that you want to have a chat about today. I know you're coming over here to the UK and doing lots of touring and stuff. So, but before we get into that, I always really like to ask people about their own personal shamanic path. So, can you tell me a little bit about how you came to be on this shamanic path and what kind of thing it is that you do?
Sure. Let's see. I'll try to make this short. Um, I grew up on the East Coast of the United States, Italian-American family, so I was Catholic. So I was pretty traditional in my religion until I reached my teens, and that just didn't work for me. So for a number of years, I was kind of looking for my road. I went to Colorado right around 1990, a little before that actually, the first few times, and moved there in 91 full-time. I was with Colorado State University, and I ran an environmental center. And while at the center, some Native American teachers and educators with the university approached me to work with the Native students who were there. And so that I started meeting different Native American people, and before I knew it, I was immersed with several Lakota teachers. And then as I did work in Central America, I was sitting with several Mayan teachers, and later with some Aborigine teachers from Australia and some Garifuna teachers of African descent. So my spiritual road was rather diverse, although my Lakota teachings are my primary ones. Over the years, as I traveled and worked with people, I became a pipe carrier and a water pourer, which means I conduct sweat lodges, and I became a keeper of medicine in the Mayan tradition. And none of this had I looked for. I just was there, and it kind of found me. But it's become my primary road, and the way I connect best with Mother Earth and nature, trying the best I can to provide a better legacy for the people who come after us.
Mm. And you mentioned that connection with nature. Is that fundamental for shamanism as far as you're concerned?
It certainly is for me. I can't speak for everyone, and it has been, boy, for any teacher or peer or anyone else that I've worked with, it's certainly in the indigenous populations. It's just a critical connection. I mean, there really isn't anything unless we work well with the Earth Mother.
Mm. Mm. And it's really interesting to see then that you've got these really diverse teachings from all different parts of the globe. Did you travel to any, like you said, you'd worked with some African traditions and Australian. Did you travel to those places, or did you receive those teachings in your own land?
You know, it was kind of a mix. My work with the Mayan people, I was actually in Central and South America many times, and I worked with them down there, although then some of them also came up. I was living in Colorado at the time.
Mm-hmm.
The people of African descent, I mostly worked with in Central America. I have not been to Africa. And the Australian teachers, I actually found me, or we came together when I was in Great Britain a number of years ago. They were visiting there. Yeah, I guess, part of the realm, and
yeah,
they were visiting there, and then they came to Colorado and spent a number of months, a couple of times, with me, and we worked together there. So it's been kind of all over the globe, but not necessarily on the home ground of any of the particular people I worked with.
Because I think because I work with kind of different traditions and stuff here in the UK, but I feel that it's the land here in the UK that probably is my biggest teacher, and so I don't really find that I'm able to transfer everything exactly from other traditions into this land. I have to work in a way that this land is comfortable with. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean, and that was very well said. Absolutely feel the same way. The land kind of dictates the way you do things. For me, I think I've learned all these different ways and been honored to share some of my ways, because now is the time that many of the teachings and many of the prophecies talk about, when we have to share our ways amongst the four colors, amongst all the people. And to do that, you really have to honor the land you're on at any time, because it's so diverse around the globe.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I do. So in your practice then that you do as a modern shamanic practitioner, you said that you do sweat lodges. What other kind of things do you do in your own practice these days?
I do a variety of things. I'm mostly involved with working with various nonprofits all around the Earth Mother and around the children who are going to come, the 7 generations. But I do ceremonies, sometimes just for myself or my wife and myself. Other times circles will form. I do teachings around the different native traditions that I've learned. And if I'm asked, I'm always available to open my chanupa, my sacred pipe, which is the way we're taught. When we're asked to open the pipe, for a good reason, we are pretty much required to do that. And so I always honor any request to open the pipe and lead prayers. I have not led many sweat lodges of late. I've mostly been attending a friend, Bear Cloud in Arizona, his sweat lodge, and I act as his rock carrier and fire tender. I'll probably be doing some sweat lodges pretty soon. I'm seeing that coming again. Yeah. It hasn't been a part for me lately. I used to lead quite a few of them, and then it just kind of wasn't there. And that happens quite often. Different things seem to come and go. Whatever's needed is what I try to do.
Yeah, no, I see the same thing as well. Sometimes I'm, completely fixated on a particular type of work, and then suddenly there's no need for that anymore. Go and do something else. We just do as we're told, don't we?
Yep, absolutely. And to me, that's spirit guiding us to be using our skills and whatever it is we know in whatever's needed at the moment.
Yeah. And you said sometimes you do ceremony by yourself and sometimes with your wife. I really like this idea of ceremony. I kind of look around and feel like people have forgotten a little bit the importance of ceremony, and I think in modern life we'll have ceremonies for things like, weddings and funerals and christenings and things like that. And I think, there's more. I can find stuff pretty much every day to have a ceremony for if I look hard enough. Do you try and bring that kind of ceremonial feel into your life quite a lot?
We do, and again, that also varies. There's times where we seem to be doing ceremony quite a bit, and people will be asking us to do things. There's other times that it's, just to go sit in nature somewhere. That becomes the ceremony of that moment. We went to Sedona last week. I was asked to do a talk around my book and a book signing and to be part of a circle there. And we decided to go take a hike to a sacred place called the Wisdom Lodge we've gone to before. And we had no intention of doing that because we were quite tired with all the things we were doing. But that turned into a half a day of ceremony and prayer and just really enjoying the nature of the place. And those, to me, are the most powerful, when we don't plan them, but suddenly we know, oops, we need to go do this now.
Yeah. And what wonderful landscape to be doing it in.
Yes, it is. It is an amazing landscape. Very, very powerful.
Yeah, big open country. Do you grew up on the East Coast, you said, so was it quite kind of rural there or a bit more kind of closed in?
It was more closed in. It was more, I was born in Philadelphia, but My parents moved to the suburbs when I was just a little child. So I grew up in suburbs, but as I grew up, it became more and more crowded. And, we still go back to visit because my wife's also from the Northeast coast. But it's a little too crowded for me. When your primary connection in life is nature and the Earth Mother, as mine is, being back there is just a little too stifling.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I recently moved out of London into the middle of nowhere in Surrey, down in the south of the UK, and I know exactly what you mean. But sometimes people, for various reasons, will remain living in those kind of more built-up areas. Do you have any kind of tips that you give people to kind of maintain that good connection with the earth, even if they're not living in kind of really obvious country locations?
Yeah, and I do a lot of programs, and I have, and retreats in places that are more built up. You don't, I mean, for me, I love to go out in nature, and we love to hike up canyons, and that's our thing. But you can go into your own backyard and get absorbed into nature. I think it's more about where your heart and your mind are than where your physical body is. For some, it takes just, a little backyard to be comfortable. For others, we need to roam.
But you can still get that connection anywhere, you think, then?
Absolutely, yeah. Yep. Or go sit by some moving water, a stream or a creek. And just, to me, I always tell people, try to calm your brain. Try to let your brain move into the back seat and your heart move into the front seat and take over the controls. If you do that, it's really much easier to connect with nature.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned a book there. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Sure. It's a book that I thought I would have written years ago, and for some reason I just was not able to write it. And I'm sure now the reason was because the time wasn't right. And about a year and a half ago, we were living in Sedona, and suddenly I just sat down and I turned to Sue, my wife, and I said, wow, it's time. I need to write now. And so I wrote a book, and it is, the title is White Man, Red Road, 5 Colors. And it is, as Sue said when she read it, the first time, she said, boy, this is all about you, and it's not about you at all. And I think that is true. It follows my journey on the spiritual road, talks about some of the people I've worked with and met, and I share some of the teachings from both those people and some that I've been gifted directly from Spirit. But it could be anyone. And as people are reading it, I'm getting a lot of feedback, how they resonate to certain parts or how it triggered some thoughts in them and they want to know more. And I think that's why Great Spirit or God or Creator or whatever term you prefer had me write this book. I actually just finished my second book because I guess I wasn't done, called Walking with the Earth Mother, which kind of fits in with our discussion today.
Yeah.
And I don't know if more are to come or not. I suspect they will. But I think it's to get the word out there, to get out some of these things we're talking about, because right now is the time we will find better ways to work in harmony with the earth and better ways to provide for the generations that are going to come, or we're going to be in dire straits.
And there is that huge increase in the number of people who are looking to paths like ours now, don't you think?
Oh boy, absolutely.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think a lot of people are, the term used a lot is waking up. They're realizing the time is now. There's some trigger in us as a race maybe that it's time that we now have to step up and do these things. Certainly some of the cultures, different cultures I've worked with, their prophecies talk about this time, and they're told that they need now to share with the 4 colors, to share with everyone else. And that, I think, is helping a great deal, too. When I started on this road, I met a fair amount of resistance from some of the people I worked with, especially Native American. And others welcomed me, but some were not too happy with that. Now, I find we sit in circles together. You know, we can have white, red, black, and yellow all sitting together and talking about our paths. And I think a lot of people are starting to resonate to that.
Mm. Yeah, I think sometimes when people think about shamanism, there is that, you know, I mean, I certainly see it from people sometimes when they're like, "Oh, you're a little white woman. What do you know about these things?" Like it belongs to like some kind of exotic tribal people and is not kind of a modern Western path. But I think those distinctions are starting to fall away now a bit.
Yeah, I think they are too. Even the words, some of the words have been so distorted, and shaman, unfortunately, is one of them, because they've been misused so long. And some people decide to take these titles on themselves rather than wait until they're bestowed. And I think those sorts of things have put some negative connotations on. So it's good as we do our work and we talk about those things, and people realize that these paths, these roads, these ways have been around since the beginning of the human race.
So what do you call yourself then? What title do you use to describe the work?
Wow, that's a good question. Well, when we first started and you asked me some questions, you may have noticed I said that I'm a pipe carrier in the Lakota tradition. I'm a water pourer. These are titles that have been bestowed upon me by the people I worked with. I call myself a healing guide. And to me, that's what I do. Whether it's working with nature or whether it's working with other people or whether it's working with animals, it doesn't matter. But I'm never comfortable. And people say, "Well, are you a shaman?" The most I'll say is some people have used that term with me.
Yeah, maybe it's funny, isn't it, knowing what to call yourself? I haven't decided yet for myself either. Healing guide sounds nice. I like that.
Yeah, and it really is. I never know what to. Sometimes I just say, "Well, I'm just another two-legged walking my walk. What is it you need?"
You can call me Jim.
That's right, and I do that too. Now that's interesting. There was that you just said that line. One of the first Native American people I really met was Lawrence Little Thunder, who was when I was in Colorado, and he was the head of the Native American students, and we were at a large gathering once, and it was Native people and white people, and it was all around natural resources. And Lawrence was to speak, and he went up, and the gentleman at the podium was a white political person, and he kind of faltered, and he looked at him, and he said, "What do I call you? Do I call you Native American? Do I call you Indian? Do I call you Red?" And Lawrence just kind of smiled and looked at him and said, "Why don't you just call me Lawrence? That's my name."
We do get hooked up on it, don't we?
Yeah, we do. So let's just, names they're only a way of identifying each other. They don't really tell us what's inside. You have to know someone longer before that happens.
Yeah. The names we choose for ourselves, though, are quite interesting. I'd noticed, we've been connecting on Facebook of late, you and I, and I see that the name that you've given yourself on there is Jim Graywolf Patruzzi. Can you tell me about that choice?
I can, and it wasn't my choice. After I'd worked with indigenous populations for a while, my Native American teachers gave me the name Jim Red Wolf, and took me as their nephew. And so I carried the name Red Wolf, and I asked them why did you call me Red Wolf? I'm Italian American, so I'm olive skin. My hair was jet black at that time, no more. There was nothing red about my physical appearance. And of course they smiled, and I got the same answer that I usually did. When you need to know, you will. And within 2 years, I worked a bit on the educational pieces when they reintroduced wolves into Yellowstone Park. And then in the following year, I went east to run a center, and one of the animals in that center was the endangered red wolf. So they must have seen something ahead of time. And it was only a couple of years ago, while writing this first book, actually, that some visions I had earlier on came back to me. And also the thought that I needed to change the name from Red Wolf to Graywolf. And I called my teachers, and I was told, oh, yes, it's time. Change your name now. You're now Graywolf. So really, it started with them, not with me.
Oh, that's fascinating. And great that you're doing, working with those kind of species and stuff. Do you feel like a connection with them through actually working with them on the physical?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've felt that wolf energy in me many, many years, long before I was on this road. And my wife worked with a population of wolves for about 14 years. So between us, there's this really strong link, and wolf energy is part of what we are.
Yeah. Yeah, part of what you are, not part of what you do, I noticed you said there.
Yes, and you're right. That's a distinction, absolutely.
So, does your personal practice involve kind of working with animal spirits then in that way?
It does. I've worked with a lot of people identifying who their animal guides are, and helping them to connect to their animal guides. Because having wolf animal guide has been such a huge asset to me. I like to share those abilities in those ways. And I've worked a bit with shape-shifting, which was taught me by my native teachers, and which has nothing to do with the Hollywood version of turning into an animal.
Oh, that's so disappointing.
I'm sorry. But in Dreamtime, you can do whatever you want.
Because I was speaking to somebody recently who was talking about she'd been doing some work with some Chilean people who work in their own kind of shamanic ways, who are very, very close to their kind of traditional teachings of that particular tribe. And she was saying that they don't work with animal spirits at all, and unless it's for hunting that particular type of animal, and really a lot of their works in this particular tribe is more with plant spirits, because then they're finding and learning and taking in the medicine of those plants. But there's a lot of traditions, I think, that do work with animal spirits and keep them with them right into adulthood. And is that what you've been taught with your Lakota teachings?
Yes, and your animal guides, your animal spirits can change. Wolf has walked with me, I suppose, my whole life. But other animals seem to come and go based on the need and the timing. But it's interesting because I also am very connected to plants. So plant energy is strong, and that's what the Mayan people taught me, because they, like you were talking about the Chileans, they also are very connected to plants, also to animals, but more to plants. So maybe, again, it's part of what is most prevalent where you stand on the Earth Mother.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, because I like I like working with my tree spirits and things, and that's very old school. In the British Isles, there's a lot of really deep work with tree spirits, but other than that, I don't do huge amounts of plant work. A bit of I've had ayahuasca experience and things like that, which is obviously amazing. But for me, it's the animals that really come through and talk to me. And as you say, they come and go for particular needs in your life. But I have my lifers as well, which I think are there for the long haul. I guess I won't know that until the end. But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Wolf has always been there for me. Eagle has been there for me.
Hmm.
And I suspect they'll be there till the end, but I don't know that either.
No, no, they like to keep us guessing. But I do know a lot of people who work with um, power animal spirits very closely, who talk about it's not really. They don't like to say which animal it is that they're working with. They like to keep that very private. I personally, I think a lot of the stuff that I work with Lioness primarily, and a lot of the stuff that she tells me is just for me, and I don't repeat that. But I kind of feel okay with people maybe knowing that about me. And you're obviously quite comfortable with people knowing that you carry this wolf medicine.
Yeah, I am. I also, I mean, there's certain things that I keep within myself because it's clear that's what I'm to do. But in
Mm.
general, I'll share things unless I hit that point. And again, when we were talking this weekend and then I was talking about the book, I always tell people ahead of time, if you ask a question that really touches on some teaching that I was given and told to keep within myself, I'll respectfully say that I can't answer that. But don't take it personally. It's just the way I was trained.
Mm.
And I think most people respect that.
Yeah, yeah, it's about honouring your teachings, I guess, isn't it?
It is. That's exactly right. I actually, and sometimes I will have Native American people in the audience, and there were a couple there this past week, and they'll ask me, well, what do you share in the book? How much do you share? And I share quite a bit, and I share a lot about the sweat lodges and the teaching lodges I was in. But I stop short of sharing certain ceremonies that are only given to the person who's being initiated into whatever facet it is, carrying the pipe or pouring water in a lodge.
Mhm.
And that's just respecting your teachers and the ways and spirit.
Mm. And do you think that there's a lot to be gained from this kind of sharing rather than keeping everything? There's a lot of people who like to keep their tradition very close, to try and preserve the knowledge so it doesn't get kind of diluted by traveling. But I think we're seeing a lot more sharing of traditions and allowing them to spread and be adapted. Do you think it's important that the information is being spread further at this point?
Yeah, I think it's not only important, it's absolutely critical right now.
Mm.
The primary prophecies all talk about this time and how we need to share our ways because
Mm.
each race, each culture, each one is holding some of the pieces of the puzzle. And if we don't share them, we'll never see how the pieces fit together. At least
Mm.
that's how I view it. And I'm finding more and more people do that. It is a balance. There are some people who do like to keep what they know very close. I'm not sure why. Maybe they're afraid it'll dilute it too much, and
Mm.
I can understand that with some of the things that have gone on in the past. But it's now time to put away those fears. I think to put away any anger we have against someone who may have wronged us or our people in the past, because we've all had that,
Mm.
and come together and share these things and see how those pieces fit.
And you're going to be touring in April, I think. More sharing. Tell us a little bit about your touring.
Yeah, that just kind of, I knew this year would be a time that I would be called to go around, as did my wife, and we've talked about it a lot. My teachers had told me for a long time I would need to go around and be sharing things now. And suddenly we found ourselves here in New Mexico for a year getting ready. We were invited to the London Book Fair where they're going to be highlighting my book. And we began meeting other people, Blue Thunder, Danny, down in
Mm.
Cornwall,
Mhm.
my friend from before, Janice, up in Scotland. And it came to me that it was really important that as we come over there this time, that I'm ready and willing to share those things that I've learned and to equally sit in the circle and listen carefully to what the people over there have to share. I've been in Great Britain at least a dozen times, always found a strong affinity but not in this way. This is a new way. So as we started looking at this, suddenly we knew we'd be with Danny down in Cornwall. We'll be down there for a week, maybe more. And we're going to be doing a workshop in near him.
Whereabouts in Cornwall? Sorry, that's pretty precise geography, isn't it, from where you are?
Well, right. The property is called Riding Light. And Danny is at bluethunder1950 @gmail. He can certainly tell you more. Or if people are on Facebook, they can go to the events section and they'll see it there. And we've been invited, I guess, to the Twin Hills powwow, which I'm really looking forward to. And then we'll be going up to Scotland, near Dunoon in Argyll. I think I said that right. To do a workshop in early May. And I'm sensing other things will appear. We're bringing our drum, our community drum. It's a 3-foot powwow drum that Sue uses for leading healing. So we'll be working with the drum. We'll be doing some workshops on some of the things you're talking about, I'm sure, shape-shifting, animal guides, anything else people wish to hear as we travel.
It sounds like fun, and this touring business. Getting to go right down into Cornwall and right up into Scotland. I mean, just some of the most beautiful places that exist over here. It's a really lovely part of the country. I love Cornwall particularly.
Yeah, I do too, and I haven't been there in quite a number of years, so I'm really looking forward to it.
It's powerful land down there.
Yeah, I remember that. I definitely remember that. And I'm hoping, I really want to get to Stonehenge again. I'm really hoping somehow I can get permissions to go inside all of those fences and gates that they had on there the last time. And we can open the drum and I can open the chanupa and pray in a good way. And I don't know if that'll happen, but I'm putting that energy out because it just seems that's something we need to connect with.
Yeah, they can. You can do it. I think you can. I think you can sort of hire it out like like a venue. Which is really weird.
That is
because I don't. I know they open it sometimes to the druids on the solstices and things, but otherwise, yeah, it's behind those really big. Those fences are so far away from the stones, you can barely feel them, and I kind of. I don't really go there. I drive past it quite a bit, and I just, it kind of bums me out to be so far from it. And I get all, foot stompy, and I'm a witch. They should let me in. Those stones are mine. But yeah, I think it can be done. I think you can arrange to have ceremonies in there, and it would be great to have a ceremony where it was sort of that kind of shamanic stuff, getting the drums out and things like that, because the big ones down there that they do on the solstice, it's just huge numbers of people, and it's very kind of scattered energy.
Right.
Because not everybody down there is going there for the ceremony. They're kind of going there for the spectacle and for the event. They're not really focused in that way. It would be great if you could arrange to do like a focused ceremony in there.
Yeah, exactly. I was there 30-some years ago, and there were no fences, and all that stuff was not there yet. And then a number of years later, when I went back, I remember feeling I was sad. Like you said, the fences are so far back, and it's like they've tried to imprison the energy, and that's just not.
Yeah.
Oh well.
I think they're doing it to protect it, but there's so many places where there are natural power spots, aren't there, that maybe less people know about, where you can properly get in amongst it. Do you have? I bet you must have a few of those down there where you're living in New Mexico.
Yeah, we do. We had a lot of them in Sedona, and we have some here. And actually, I have different places across the states because I've traveled pretty extensively. So pretty much anywhere I go, I can find And as you're saying, it may be a very simple place, not known at all, just in the middle of nothing, but very strong, powerful energy.
Mm. How do you feel that? Like if somebody wanted to go out and find a power spot for themselves, and with some of our beautiful places we can't get to them, we can't actually go and sit amongst it. How would you advise people to kind of try and find a power spot of their own?
It takes some practice, I guess. Part of the process, once again, is try to clear your mind as best you can and let your heart take over, because it's your heart that's going to feel those things. Your brain's too busy saying, well, that can't really exist. Your heart's saying, well, here they are, just look. So I try to be totally in my heart. I go out there. I pay attention to everything around me, making sure I look up and down, not just forward. So if there's any signs or whatever, I'll see them. I can usually feel the energy, whatever that might be, light or dark. And of course, I shy away from the dark ones and I move into the light ones. Some I've had, kind of physical proof of afterwards. This walk we took last week in Sedona, a couple of years ago I was there, and there's one point you're between high, narrow canyon walls, and so it's very dark. And a friend snapped a picture of me, and afterward we look at it, and it looks like there's rays of light coming down right onto my head, even though it was dark. And my wife took a shot this last week in the same spot, and once again there was like colors over my head in the photo. So I knew what I felt about that spot was correct, because here I could see it right in a photo.
That's amazing. It's nice, isn't it? Even after, I mean, you've been on the path a long time now, but it's always nice to get those little bits of validation, isn't it?
It really is. And we think we don't need that anymore, but when they happen, I just get these huge smiles.
Yeah.
It just feels good. When I work with people who are new to this, it's always really nice if they see something or feel something, because it helps them to understand a little bit how to go ahead with this path.
Yeah, especially in the beginning, it's so useful, isn't it? And I love it when students come back and say, oh, you know what I saw in the journey? You'll never guess what. When I got home, I saw exactly that. I go, well, I will guess that, but yes, it's great, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's good to hear.
Yeah, and it quiets the mind chatter down a bit, I think, and makes us a bit more trusting of our heart. You mentioned earlier that you're involved with non-profits, and I know that you're working primarily with Sanctuaries of the Earth Mother. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. It actually came out of a vision I had years ago on the Pine Ridge Reservation, which is where Wounded Knee is. And I knew at some point I was to help create these places, these physical places that would be just that. They would be sanctuaries. And the name Sanctuaries of the Earth Mother came to me because these are the sanctuaries of the Earth Mother, not of we humans. We are the ones who are there trying to relearn how to work with her in a good way. I see them as places where elders and older ones can come, and we need to have the young ones come so we can pass on some of the old knowledge. Some of these things we've been talking about now where people are actually sharing. As I was with Colorado State and I would have students show up, it always saddened me that so many students are never going out into nature. I ran an environmental center, and I had kids who showed up who were felt very uncomfortable walking on unpaved roads. And I think we have to relearn some of these things and share them. And that's kind of what I see the sanctuaries being, the way to reconnect with the earth and a way to provide a better legacy for our kids, because so far the one we're providing is not a particularly attractive one.
Mm. So are you, what do you do under the banner of the non-profit? Do the books fall under that as well, and ceremonies and courses, or is it a particular these particular areas that you're taking people to?
Yeah, it's still evolving. The books
Hmm.
the books fall under it. The teachings fall under it. After expenses, anything that's left goes into sanctuaries to help the cause. We're trying to attract other people, and more are coming into our circle in this. Both those who are willing to teach and pass on things and those who are willing to bring in the young ones so they can learn. We are looking for various properties, but not looking too hard because the ones that need to be there will appear. And we have already found 3 or 4 in the States here. The vision that came to me showed that I was to help with 7 here in the States, and that eventually there would be 100 of these around the globe. And so I'm looking for other people with similar interest, and they're beginning to appear. Because everything has to be in circle now. No one group or no one individual is going to be able to do anything effectively in these times. I think it really needs to be the circle. We have to come together now.
Yeah. This is a nice way for you to be kind of reaching out about that then as well, isn't it? If there are people that maybe feel really drawn to this cause and wanting to get in touch, can they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. And we will leave things every place we go. And we do have a Sanctuaries of the Earth Mother website, and we're on Facebook. So we are using the technology because we still need that. And I know other people will appear because they keep appearing.
Yeah.
And even as we do that work, we're connected with multiple nonprofits because I think it's important that they also connect. I'm on the board of directors of Whirling Rainbow, which is my friend White Eagle, who brings the grandmother drum around the globe to help with peace and healing.
And she, of course, was on our show in December.
That's right. And hopefully she will be in Europe next year.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
So am I. Maybe we'll have to come again.
More trips.
More trips. And I'm also on the board of the Chameleon Project, which is a nonprofit of my friend Bear Cloud, and very similar. It's another place. It's a place where actually gardens will be presented in a way that each garden will create one of the crop circles that has appeared over the years. And so the teachings of the star nations and the star people will be there for the young ones. So all these interconnections are now appearing, and I think that is also part of the way we need to walk.
Yeah. And you keep mentioning there this idea of the young ones and the importance of that. How young do you think it's a good time to start kind of passing on these kind of teachings and these kind of ideas about the world? Is there too young?
I don't think so. I think the younger you start, the better. In the way of the Lakota and a lot of the other tribes, everything is about the 7 generations. Anything you do, anything you try, anything you teach, you consider what effect that has on people 7 generations from now. And if it's a negative effect, you don't do it. We've lost sight of that in our westernized world. We're raping the planet. We're doing everything that will have negative effects on the 7 generations down. And so if we start with these kids very young, that's when they can really absorb a lot, and through their heart, because they're not stuck in their brains yet.
God, it's quite a sobering way to look at everything, isn't it? Thinking 7 generations down the line.
Yeah, and it really is. And even when I hike, because the other part of that is, if I want to pick a certain plant, because maybe I need that herb for my medicine bag, first I pass 7 of those plants before I pick one. Because in that way, I'm leaving one plant for each of the 7 generations. And if we start doing those things, we'll become, I know they sound, well, it's almost like a game, but it's not. We become more sustainable because we're thinking about what we're doing and not just taking something because we want it.
Yes. It's a mindfulness practice, isn't it?
That's it. Great word. Yes, it is. Staying aware.
Yeah. How wonderful. It's really some great positive energy coming from you, really like a real big heart energy coming from you while we're speaking. I've been smiling all the way through our interview.
Thank you. So actually, so have I.
And it's really good to have people kind of just sitting in, you're not kind of really pushing a cause, in a harsh way. We're just kind of trying to live a bit more kindly and be a bit more awake, and more in touch with the earth. And it's so great that you're coming over to the UK. What are your dates for coming over to the UK? I want to make sure I get to see you.
Oh, let's see. I guess we'll be flying in on April 12th, and we'll be in the London area until the morning of the 19th, because we will be going to the book show a bit.
Yeah.
But we're available if somebody wants to create a circle around London. We're certainly open to that. And then the Twin Hells Powwow is on the weekend of, I believe it's the 21st and 22nd. And then on the 28th is the workshop in Cornwall that I could not tell you where that is, but
it's okay, there's a website for that kind of thing.
There is.
It's fine. But there's plenty of opportunities for people who want to come along to a workshop or to the book fair or whatever. You're going to be around in a couple of places in the UK for people.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then after that we'll leave. On May 6th is the workshop in Scotland. So as we meander up towards Scotland, we're available then, or as we head out of that and down, because I think we leave on the 15th of May. And I know other things were going to appear. I just keep sensing that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Oh, it's been so great talking to you. I'm really glad that you coming out here in April. Really urge everybody, if you're in the London or Cornwall or Scotland area, to really try and get to see you and talk to you about the book and head along to your workshops. Have you got a web address where people can learn a little bit more about what you're doing?
Yes, for sanctuaries, they can go to www.sotem.org.
Yep.
That's probably the best way to pick up on sanctuaries. We're also on Facebook, and they're welcome to, if they look for the group Sanctuaries, we will welcome them into that group as well.
Got a nice, busy little community on there, haven't you?
We do. It's really been, it's funny because it's sat kind of small and inactive for a while. And suddenly, because I guess time was right, everyone started coming to it, and there's been a lot of excellent discussions on there. I'm learning a lot.
Excellent. And so nice to have somebody coming over to share teachings who really picked up on that, what you said earlier, that you come to Circle to share what you know and to listen carefully to what other people know, not kind of forgetting that we're all students.
Yeah, that's right. We are all students.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. It's been really lovely talking to you. You have a good trip over here to the UK.
We will. It's a long flight, but once that's over, it'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for talking to us today, Jim.
Thanks, Kay. Be well.
You take care.
You're listening to The Big Interview on the Shamanic Voice.